We're going to enjoy our keynote speech now, and this is from someone who's new to the job, new to the position that he's just taken up. He's the current Commonwealth Race Discrimination Commissioner. This is Giridharan Sivaraman. He's been a lawyer for some 20 years. He practiced in workplace relations, discrimination law and social justice. He was Director and Chair of Multicultural Australia for some 6 years, an organisation which settles refugees and migrants into Queensland. His mission was to create belonging and a sense of inclusion. He's been a member of the Queensland Multicultural Advisory Council, which advised the Minister for Multicultural Affairs, and is now, in only the last week or so, taken up the position of Commonwealth Race Discrimination Commissioner. Giridharan Sivaraman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. He's over here.
Thank you, Cousin James. Assalamu alaikum, may peace be upon you. I'd like to acknowledge our parliamentary hosts and parliamentarians who are here, distinguished guests, of whom there are many, and of course friends, and a special shout out to my colleagues from the Australian Human Rights Commission who are here with us tonight. Thank you so much, Cousin Ahmed and his team at Affinity Intercultural Foundation for organising this year's Friendship and Dialogue Iftar dinner, which has once again brought together a wonderfully diverse cross-section of the community, and thank you so much for letting a Queenslander speak in New South Wales Parliament House. I understand that I can now call you all cousin, even though I'm a Queenslander, so that's a great thing. We share this evening, of course, on the traditional lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and any First Nations people who are here tonight. Tonight's theme is listen with the ears of tolerance, see through the eyes of compassion, speak with the language of love, of course, by Rumi. I can't think of a more important topic right now. We are in an environment where international conflicts reverberate with such force, conflicts that are tens of thousands of kilometres away, reverberate with such force that the ground beneath us here shakes. And of course, at the moment, it is the conflict in Gaza that is reverberating here. It has created a terrifying surge in anti-Semitic and Islamophobic hate here in Australia. And I know, and I wanted to address this directly, I know that there are Muslim groups that have not gone to iftar dinners like this one because of their view on the way in which governments are responding. I didn't want to pretend that wasn't happening or hide from it. I wanted to acknowledge it with sadness because it just represents how a global conflict creates such antipathy here that it can erode our own cohesion. And I suspect that I will be asked repeatedly over the coming months about my view on that conflict. And I might as well address it now, but I'll address it within the lens of my role as Commonwealth Race Discrimination Commissioner. And my role is, whatever your view on what is happening in Gaza, here in Australia, we cannot stand idly by whilst racism surges and racist hate surges in this country. That is my responsibility as Commonwealth Race Discrimination Commissioner within the Australian Human Rights Commission, which is a wide and significant mandate within this nation. I did say to Premier Minns, I reckon my job is harder than yours, but nonetheless, that is what we're confronted with. And we, in the Commission and in my role, we have to find out how communities are being affected, listen to their stories, and find a window from one heart to another, as Rumi says. And indeed, the federal government has committed funds to the Australian Human Rights Commission to build understanding on this very issue. But tonight isn't about conflict. It's about Iftar and Ramadan. It's about coming together in peace and respectful of our common humanity. Iftar, of course, is the breaking of the fast every day during Ramadan. It's the fourth out of 5 pillars of Islam. And I actually want to talk about the fifth and final pillar of Islam, Hajj. I'll come back to the significance of Iftar in tonight's theme, but I wanted to share one of the most profound stories I've ever read about someone's experience with Hajj. Malcolm X, as many of you would know, was an African-American Muslim human rights and political activist during the Civil Rights Movement. And I want to read an excerpt from his heartfelt reflections about his Hajj experience. He said this: "There were tens of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world. They were of all colours, from blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans. But we were all participating in the same ritual, displaying a spirit of unity and brotherhood that my experiences in America had led me to believe never could exist between the white and non-white. Never have I been so highly honoured. Never have I been made to feel more humble and unworthy. A few nights ago, a man who would be called in America a white man, a United Nations diplomat, an ambassador, a companion of kings, gave me his hotel suite, his bed. Never would I have even thought of dreaming that I would ever be a recipient of such honours that in America would be bestowed upon a king. You may wonder why I chose this quote. Well, for one, I'm the Race Discrimination Commissioner, and this is my first speech in that capacity, and I really wanted to quote Malcolm X. But far more importantly, that is a quote that illustrates how the faith of Islam transcended race divisions that could otherwise have been divisive. It showed how it can be a bridge of common understanding that provides a path over troubled waters of distrust, prejudice and hate. And an interfaith gathering like what Amit has organised and Affinity Foundation has organised here tonight expands those common bonds across common humanity and many faiths. And as the first sentence of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And bridges of understanding can always be built, even after the most intractable of conflicts. And with Ramadan being a time of reflection, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself and a story to help illustrate how a bridge can be built. My father is of Sri Lankan origin and is Tamil. All of his family, including us, were displaced by the bitter and protracted conflict that occurred between the Sri Lankan government and separatist Tamil Tigers. My cousin Giridharan was particularly badly affected. He lived in Jaffna, and at the time, as a young man, he was beaten, tied up and beaten by government troops. His father was shot in the mouth, miraculously surviving, and eventually they were accepted as refugees and came here to Australia and were very close to my family and have remained very close. Now, Bahi, as I call him, after coming to Australia, wanted to do two things more than anything else. One, get an education because that had been disrupted by the war in Sri Lanka. And secondly, play cricket. He was a big fan of Adam Gilchrist, as we all were back then. He started studying at North Sydney TAFE and playing for a team in the Parramatta district. And, you know, back in the day, I bowled a few overs at Bahi, and he was a pretty good cricketer. Very strong on the leg side. Very good cricketer. Not long after he arrived, he was at Stratfield Station waiting for a train. And another young man who looked to be Sri Lankan, and turned out that he was, came up to him. And this young man's name was Salia. Now, for those of you that don't know, you can pretty quickly tell from your name whether you're of Tamil or Sinhalese descent. And it was clear that Salia was of Sinhalese descent. Salia introduced himself to my cousin Bahi, asked him if he was Sri Lankan, and then, as you do when you meet a fellow Sri Lankan, asked him if he played cricket. Now, this could have gone a few ways. Bahi had just escaped a horrific civil war between Sinhalese and Tamil people and had just come to Australia. He could have been distrustful, could have told him nothing, could have walked away. Instead, he made a choice. He chose to listen with the ears of tolerance to someone who was Sinhalese. He chose to see through the eyes of compassion someone else who was searching for community, searching for a common connection, a sense of belonging. Now, I don't know if he spoke the language of love. It was more the language of cricket or the love of cricket. But nonetheless, he accepted Salia, told him where to meet, and they started playing together. But here's the important postscript. That was more than 20 years ago. And for 20 years, Bahi and Salia played cricket together. Many other teammates came and went, but they kept playing together. And they became best friends, and they are best friends now. In telling you that story, I don't want to just imply that an open heart will solve all conflict and improve cohesion. It won't. It can't. We have to confront and deal with racism first before we can be socially cohesive. This Thursday is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. In this country, it has become Harmony Day and the focal point of Harmony Week. The problem with Harmony Day in my view, is that it can discourage people from speaking up about racism, as that's seen as undermining or contradicting the notion of a harmonious Australian society. But we have to fight against racism because the foundation of harmony in a society is one that is truly free and equal. But the important thing is, even in that fight, there will always be a place for compassion, tolerance, and love. Racism is fundamentally based on the notion that one person is superior to another because of their race. It does not sit easily with compassion for others. It does not tolerate others, and it certainly has very little room for love. So thank you, Cousin Ahmed, and the Affinity Intercultural Foundation for shining a light in the shadow that at times hovers above us now. Thank you for being brave enough to believe in affinity, the things that unite us, respect for each other's belief, and belief in our common humanity. So I finish with listen with the ears of tolerance, see through the eyes of compassion, and speak with the language of love. Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much. You might be getting a gift. Yes, you are getting a gift. In fact, Ahmed himself is going to give you a gift, so it's possibly very, very special. Jerry, thank you so much for sharing those stories, and I think we're honoured by the fact that that's your first speech as Race Commissioner done here for the Affinity organisation. So thank you so much, Jerry.